Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike. How's it going?
It is Monday. It is beautiful Monday in Washington, D.C. It's 70 degrees out today.
It was lovely. Yeah.
It's feeling like we're on the way out, which is my favorite start to my favorite time of year, I guess.
Yeah, supposedly we're going to get the cherry blossoms early, which for those that are not familiar with local DC spring culture, there's basically a bunch of trees around here that are cherry trees. They're all over the place, but there's specifically a ton like downtown DC, right around the tidal basin, which is like a pond thing by the Jefferson Memorial. Anyway, it's really pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Until all the people get there, and then it's less beautiful. But,
Yeah, right. It's a
but
big thing. They have like a festival.
yeah,
They call it the Cherry Blossom Festival. So, but they only last for like 10 days or something. So
it's not long. It's like there's like a 2 week interval. If you don't catch it, that's it.
Yep.
Kaput.
Yeah. So it's a big deal around here. And supposedly we're getting them early because it's been so warm. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they last long enough to my kids love that sort of thing. So hopefully I can get down there and see them. We also have a cherry tree in our front yard. So it's not like we have to, we can look at that one and be like, look, cherry blossom. Check that box.
Yep. Don't have to drive 20 miles.
Right. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, lovely weather aside, we're going to talk. This is going to be a very rules focused cast today.
I think that might be all we're going to talk about. Outside of the fact that I'd like to slip in there, Star Wars Unlimited is a hell of a game and y'all should try it.
Yeah, I have not actually got to play it yet, but I have been, editing all of Kingsley's articles. He writes articles for our site, and more specifically, he writes articles about Star Wars Unlimited. So if you want some like more information about what that is, obviously it's the new card game from FFG about Star Wars, but he's got a lot of in-depth like articles about how it works, how to play it, some strategies. The most recent one he put out was all about like the draft format,
which is awesome.
It seems like they put a lot of thought into how that works.
I mean, they put a lot of thought into everything. For those of us that may be desiring orchestrated, organized play, Star Wars Unlimited, they like aced it. It's like nutty. Yeah, I don't know. It was really, really great. Also, as far as Kingsley's stuff, he's got like YouTube videos going up like every day. Like they're not on our channel, but I think it's Tower Number Nine on YouTube. I definitely like his card reviews are like on my feed. But like he's got like 40-second like clips and there's like 300 cards or whatever. So anyways, I did that this weekend. It was really fun. Highly recommend.
Yeah,
FFG still got it.
Yeah, I ordered a starter and one of those booster boxes. So I don't know if I'm going to manage to get out to stores and play it anytime soon, but I'm definitely excited about it. I'm not typically a card game guy, but I figured I'd buy into this one because there's everybody that's played it's like this is amazing. They really like put a lot of effort into making sure that this is like really tight and fun. And yeah, I'm encouraged by everything I've seen with it. So I guess like a couple of weekends ago, they flew a bunch of content creators out to their headquarters to like play it and review it and stuff. Like they're going through all the they're doing all the right things to like get and do this promotional blitz and get this out to people. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that they're doing it right. It's awesome.
yep. Anyway, we are going to talk today about Legion rules.
Yeah, we are.
So this is going to be sort of two things. The first is we got new keywords in the CRB. Most of these we don't even know who they belong to yet.
We
You
can
you
make some
can you
educated
can make some
guesses.
educated guesses, which we will do. Speculate wildly. Some of these are for Inquisitors, so we know who those belong to. But the other ones are for some combination of Range Troopers, Bad Batch, and Clone Commandos.
Yep.
Is it just those three?
I believe that those, along with Inquisitors, were the four
Right.
units they mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were very specific in, I believe, like the Twitter post. They're like, the rules book has been updated with keywords for 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So it's not like, I mean, maybe there's a surprise in there somewhere, but they were very clear on what units these go with. I'm actually, as long as we're speculating wildly, I have a suspicion that we might be able to get our hands on these at Adepticon. Possibly. Feels weird to me that they would put the Clone Commandos, Bad Batch, and Range Trooper keywords in this rule book so early if they were not expecting them until June.
It is
Which is like their current release date is hanging around, if I recall correctly.
for some of them. I don't think Bad Batch ever had a release date
Yeah,
announced.
I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't like some of them don't have one at all, but I guess what I'm saying is like the earliest release date that we have for any of the non-Inquisitor products, I
Yeah.
believe, is somewhere in the June timeframe. I'm looking it up right now, but
Yeah, that sounds right. The point being, this seems like really early to be putting unit keywords in the CRB for units that are at least 3 months away, if not longer. So, it's great that they're in here.
yeah, I mean
Um,
they're not even up for pre-order on the Asmodee site,
yeah,
from what I can see. I'm
that'd
like
be cool.
typing them in.
That'd be cool if they were there to buy at Adepticon. At a minimum, I would guess that we'll see previews for them.
For sure. And I mean, the Adepticon thing's like not unprecedented. We got the Gav tank and
Is the AAT,
the
I think.
the AA5, or was it the
Maybe it
AAT?
was the
I thought it was the
no, it was
Imperial and the
the
Rebel.
yeah, no, sorry. It was the land speeder and the gap tank.
Okay, yeah, we got those like a month and a half early at
Yeah.
Adepticon. Um,
They did
so
that once with something at Gen Con too, but I don't remember what it was.
yeah, it's not
Oh, the
unprecedented.
Dewbacks.
Oh, the
Because there was the
debacle.
debacle. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. So holding out hope there,
Yeah.
just because I don't know. Otherwise, why put them in here so early?
Yeah.
Uh,
So we can speculate about them.
yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and do that?
Mm-hmm.
Should we just go alphabetically here like it is in the keyword glossary?
Yeah, let's do that because it's easy.
Yeah. All right. So first one, advanced targeting, unit type X. Unit keyword. When a unit with the advanced targeting X keyword declares an attack against an enemy unit with the unit type listed, before measuring range, it may gain X aim tokens. A unit that uses the advanced targeting X keyword may only form one attack pool and skips the declared additional defender step of the attack sequence. So basically, if you attack the thing that's listed on your keyword, you get a free aim token. And but you can only attack that thing and nothing else.
You
Right?
may gain a free
Yeah.
number of aim tokens. The
Sure,
may
yeah,
clause
yeah.
is important because if you choose to gain the aim token, you can't split fire.
Right, yeah.
But just because you have like advanced targeting, I don't know, droid trooper, I imagine is what we're gonna see here, but we'll see.
Are you envisioning this on a clone unit? Is that why you're saying that?
Yeah, I don't know. This feels like Clone Commandos to me. We'll
Okay.
see. I don't know. I mean, it's maybe also like range troopers. I didn't really get the vibe that like range troopers like were like advanced targeting marksmen, but
I'm trying to think of what like specific unit type they would be
that's the other
targeting.
thing, right? It's like what
I think for this,
Wampus,
yeah, right.
you
I mean,
know?
I think for this keyword to work, it would have to be something like fairly specific. Like if you just did like advanced targeting troopers, this basically reads as they just get a name token almost all the time.
Right.
Um,
Um,
unless they're shooting vehicles or something. Um, if it's that broad, this is, they get a free amp token
Yeah, they just have
for attacking.
tactical, basically,
Right.
a
Except they don't have to
tactical
move.
esque ability. Yes,
Right.
yeah, for sure. They get a free amp token whenever they do the thing.
Yep.
Or I mean, this is. I mean, I guess it's X, right? They could have advanced
It could be,
targeting unit
yeah,
type 4. Maybe they
sure.
just get all
Yeah.
hits every time. I don't know. I think it would be really cool if this was like on Clone Commandos, and rather than being on the unit card, it was like a gear slot,
You could
and
specialize.
you get to pick what they have advanced targeting against. We don't have like enough unit types, really. I feel like I don't know. Droid Trooper's pretty broad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what are there? So there's droid trooper, clone trooper, trooper, um,
Wookiee Trooper.
Wookiee. Is that actually a thing, or is it
It
just
is. I
like,
mean, I think
okay,
I it's definitely defined somewhere. I'm not
okay,
sure if it's like technically the same as those types.
right, okay. Repulsor, uh,
Emplacement,
emplacement trooper,
creature.
creature trooper, uh, vehicle. I guess there's ground vehicle and repulsor vehicle. Those are two separate things.
Yeah.
So that's what, like eight?
Ish. There might be a couple other like niche ones, I guess. Like Ewoks aren't like they're just regular
They're
troopers,
just
right?
troopers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
I guess you could also list like specific units in the same way that retinue and entourage do.
I don't think so because it says unit
Unit
type
type. Okay.
X. Like I if it said unit X, I
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think I would feel differently about it, but yeah, I don't know. Assuming that this is like uh templated as intended, like yeah. I mean, I think the most obvious one is going to be like we don't have a type of unit that like range troopers obviously shoot at. It's like a,
Right.
you know,
Thematically speaking,
thematically.
yeah, they're just like stormtroopers with heavier armor,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
So I
Um,
think this is Clone Commandos, and I think it's probably just as Droid Trooper, you know.
okay.
I suspect. We'll see.
Yeah. I could easily see this too on like a specialized like vehicle hunter type unit, like
Yeah, and it might
advanced
be
targeting ground vehicle or whatever.
they've alluded to like Clone Commandos being able to like swap guns and stuff in the middle of a fight, and maybe this is like part of that. Maybe like the gun type has like I don't know. We'll see.
Like a flip card with advanced targeting something on one side and advanced targeting something else on the other side.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
instead of like the anti-droid one being like Ion, it's got advanced targeting droid trooper on it. And like if you flip it, and maybe it's like, want to go against vehicles or something. And it's like, I don't know, like a
Sure. Yeah.
shotgun. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep. All right, cool. Um, all right, associate. This is the Inquisitor keyword that allows them to basically be taken as one operative slot if you take both brother and sister. Right?
Yeah, this is it is. I was a little bit I just want to like look at the Inquisitor cards again real quick because when I looked at this originally, um uh it's actually very different than the reminder text on uh Sister. The reminder text on Sister actually calls out the operative rank, but this does not, which I found extremely interesting.
A unit with the associate keyword does not count toward its rank towards the maximum rank requirements for that rank.
Yeah.
I guess the rank of the unit that the associate keyword is on.
Yeah, and the reminder text on Sister says associate fifth brother during army building, the unit doesn't count against the number of operative rank units you may include if fifth brother is included in the same army. Which is just, I mean, like obviously, like that's like just like a more specific interpretation of that text. But when we originally saw associate, it seemed like this was a keyword that only allowed you to bring more operatives if you had that keyword associated on it.
Yeah,
All
this
I'm
is more
trying to say,
generalized.
yeah, is like this could be on more units than in this wave technically than just sister. I sort of doubt it, but it's not impossible.
Yep, fair. Future proofing, I
Yeah.
guess. All right, complete the mission. You want to read this one,
Yeah, man, I'm all
Mr.
about
Republic?
complete the mission
Yeah.
because this is definitely a Republic keyword. Saddle up,
It's definitely the
boys.
coolest one we've seen, so that tracks that it would be a Republic keyword.
Damn right. During setup, for each friendly unit with the complete the mission keyword, place a friendly priority mission token on the battlefield, not within any deployment zone. While a unit with the complete the mission keyword is at range 1 of a friendly priority mission token, that unit gains surged block. When a unit with the complete the mission keyword attacks an enemy unit at range 1 of a friendly priority mission token, the attacking unit's attack pool gains the critical 2 keyword.
So basically, if the unit that has this, let's say hypothetically clone commandos, because this feels like a clone commando keyword,
Yeah, I think,
or potentially, I guess, Bad Batch,
or I think it's possible it's both.
or both. Yeah. Anyway, so say you have a hypothetical clone-ish unit. Um, if you put the token next, where if the unit itself is next to the token, they get surge to block, and if the unit they're attacking is next to the token, then they get surge. Well, they get critical too. Which for most dice pools is going to basically be surge crit. So, yeah, I mean that's really good. I think a lot is going to depend on like how many of these you can put out.
I think
Like
so
if
too. Because if you could take like 3 of these and just like basically like string the zones together, in a
right,
way that like you can just kind of like walk across the board in like a way that is obviously telegraphed, but also like, well, I was obviously going to do this anyways.
a range one
Uh,
circle is actually pretty big.
yeah, and notably, you don't have to be like with, unlike lead from the front,
Yeah,
you don't have to be within the complete the mission,
right. You
the
just have to be
priority
at.
mission token bubble. You just have to be at. So it's like pretty easy to like just like cohere a model into the bubble. Probably you don't have to.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, and if you have like three of them, you put one token where your dudes are going to be, and then you put like two tokens where your opponent more or less has to go, and then that should cover like most of your bases, basically.
the
So
more we talk about like having multiple tokens on the board, the more I feel like this is just a bad batch keyword. Uh,
I
because
hope so because
otherwise this
that
might be
otherwise,
broken.
well, it seems like if you can drop multiples of these, it kind of defeats the purpose of like the location theme
Mattering.
of this,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because if you can just drop three of them on the table, it's gonna just this will essentially read as if your unit has surge hit and critical too. Um, and the location because range one is big, and if you can drop multiple, like you can cover a lot of ground with that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah,
I think it will be interesting to see if like you can overlap like an objective token with these. Um,
yeah,
this doesn't specify, but like, I do think that that's actually pretty important,
oh
whether
yeah,
you can or cannot, because like the most obvious use for these is like, I'm just gonna cover the key positions, or I'm
or the
gonna
intercept
cover the
point or
intercept.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because if you
And
if you can overlap, there won't be any safe spot for your opponent to
right,
like on intercept, there won't be any safe spot for them
be able to
to go.
score and
But if you
not,
can't overlap, then there would be in
yeah,
theory. So
yeah. I mean, you probably just put it closer towards them, and
on
so
their side of
the
it,
save
yeah,
spots by you, but
right.
um.
Yeah, that's probably a distinction without a difference kind of situation. But
Yeah, probably. I think it likely doesn't matter, but cool keyword.
yeah,
For sure. I would love to be able to have my clones surge without having to share surge tokens. So I'm all about it. Let's get us away from this Anakin meta. Let's do it.
yeah. I mean, they should just all search. Let's just give them all search. And
Yeah, I think that. I mean,
yeah.
that works for me.
All right. I think it's cool that it is at least notionally, unless you can spam them, a location-based ability. I think the game could use more stuff like this.
And I think we really, for the most part, like this got tried, like what something similar got tried with Sabine, which like
The graffiti token.
the graffiti token, which like the effect just like was not. It was a powerful effect, but for what it
It,
cost you, it like isn't good
when
enough.
when Sabine first came out, I feel like the difference between like 1 and 2 suppression on most units was pretty significant.
Hmm.
Um, so the graffiti token actually, like at least when it came out, it was a really useful buff slash debuff. But as suppression has been kind of devalued over time, it's the graffiti token has lost its value.
Yeah, I mean nowadays if you've got two suppression tokens and you're not a clone or a pike unit, your unit's just not on the table. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it's dead.
yes.
Yep. Um, too much offense. All right. Let's see. Next thing. Interrogate.
Yeah. So interrogate reads during the command phase. If a player reveals a command card that belongs to a unit at range one or more, at range one of one or more enemy units with the interrogate keyword, and there would be a tie for priority, treat that command card as having one more pip.
So this is again a little different than the reminder text. I think the key bit here is belongs to a unit. So I read that as it has to be like an actual command card with the unit's face on it.
Yes, it does not specify that like you just have to be nominated, right?
Right.
Like standing orders, not that you want to like win the interrogate fight against standing orders, but um like standing orders isn't hit by interrogate. Assault, ambush, push are not hit by interrogate.
Is that the same belongs? Is that the same language that's used when it like articulates how named command or named unique command cards work?
Gee whiz. I mean, I can go look if we.
I yeah, we don't have to like waste time searching necessarily, but I am curious like if that terminology has been used before. Because when I first read this, I, I mean, I think that belong means that,
It
right?
seems pretty clear to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the generics, like
It'd be cleaner if that's the exact same language that is used when they define how faced portrait command cards work.
yeah, I think yeah, I
But
agree. I do think that I think we can probably draw that conclusion. Unfortunately,
oh,
this rule
cunning.
book.
I guess we
What's
could
up?
look at cunning. The cunning language should be the same, right?
Yes,
Oh yeah,
which
cunning does
yep,
say belongs.
yep. Okay,
Okay,
cool.
yeah, so it's the same as cunning. So yeah, generic. This does not affect generic command cards. Is the bottom line. This one, which is relevant because that means you could still play like ambush or whatever and have a shot at beating sister one pip.
Yeah, and notably, I don't know if we said this already or not. This is on sister.
Yes,
So we already know where that is. Is there any more in here? Is that the end of the
we're not regs.
Ah, right. We've got no idea what unit that goes on.
Yeah.
We're not regs. A unit with the we're not regs keyword may not spend green tokens on other clone trooper units, and other clone trooper units may not spend that unit's green tokens. The fire support keyword cannot be used while a unit with the we're not regs keyword is performing an attack. Obviously, a keyword that goes on the Bad Batch unit card.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
bro.
that's their tagline basically.
Yeah, if they're like a powerful unit, this is probably for the best. Uh,
Yeah. Which
um,
it seems like they would have to be a powerful unit because of what they are. So yeah,
yes.
that seems good.
Notably, it does not restrict exemplar and Yoda sharing, um,
Very notable.
which is not insignificant.
Yep.
Um, so tough to say without like what exactly effect this has without knowing what they do. But
Right. There's one more, and it's
ooh,
because it's a weapon keyword. So it's this is an old weapon keyword that got some changes because now there is a small base trooper unit with this
yeah,
keyword.
yeah, yeah. Oh, this one is silly. Okay,
Yeah. All
go
right.
ahead.
Ram X. So the part of this that changed, basically, I won't read all the text, but the part of this that changed, it is the same for notched base troopers where they need to execute a full move before doing the keyword. Small base troopers uh, only need to perform a move. I presume maybe this is presumptuous of me, but I presume that this was done because um, small base troopers don't move along the tool anymore, and therefore, like the concept of a full speed move for a small base trooper is kind of nebulous since you just teleport to your end destination anyway.
Yeah. And for those listening, this is not the first time this conversation is going to come up today. But yes,
Yeah,
I agree that that is probably why this rule works that way.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, brother can trigger ram with any move. Doesn't have to go more. He just has to go a millimeter, and he's got ram triggered.
Not
Um,
really that big a deal, just because like you could already like use a smaller movement tool as we understood the rule to work and like jimmy it so that like he like sort of like takes a very inopportune angle to like hit a unit at full speed or whatever. Um, this just makes it
it
so
makes
that
it,
you don't have
yeah,
to do any of the stupid stuff to trigger it, which I guess is a nice quality of life
it is
increase.
a quality of life purpose.
Quality of knife, yes.
Knife.
Let's get into
Um,
melee and go.
yeah, I'm thinking about melee here. It is definitely a quality of life thing for him, and so far it only affects brother. So, I think if you had like like a whole bunch of Wookiees or something that had this like a spammable unit with this keyword that was a small base trooper, this could get, potentially weird, but um there is one weird interaction with this one that somebody highlighted on the Discord. And I don't think this is ever going to come up because I can't imagine you're actually going to ever take saber throw with brother. But um saber, this is a weapon keyword.
Jeez.
It does not specify that it has to be a melee attack. So if you make a melee attack with a weapon that has Ram X, which would be his lightsaber, you can use this. So it seems pretty clear. This has not been form ruled, but it seems at least pretty clear from the text here that if you give saber throw to brother and you move and then make a saber throw, that you can automatically make two of those dice crits. Now he already has a ranged attack on his card. That ranged attack does not have Ram.
And
Um,
also, they only search to hit, I'm pretty sure.
yes, normally. So it definitely like makes his ranged attack significantly better because you just punch out two crits basically every time you do it.
You don't even have to roll dice.
Without even having to roll dice. Yeah. I mean, I guess you should anyway, because what if you get like a crit in that pool and then you can punch out three crits, right?
Well,
Uh,
it halves the die.
yeah, it's five down to
Oh,
three.
it's this. Yeah, okay, sure.
But then you're spending his one force slot on that gimmick, which, I don't know if that's worth it or not. It's it's definitely sort of amusing that somehow this doesn't have melee weapon or melee attack in it.
I don't know. I mean, like that functionally reads as like you have a range two blast pierce one weapon that always does two.
Yeah, which is good for
It's better than
sure.
better than Han.
It is better than Han. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like
Um,
I don't know.
I mean, he doesn't
Uh,
have steady like Han does. He has enrage, which means
yeah,
he'll end up with charge. So it's, you're making a one move and then you're doing this basically. Like if he had like relentless or steady, I think this would be like a thing that you're obviously wanting to do with him.
yeah, no, for
Um,
sure. Thank God he doesn't
but
have relentless.
yeah, I mean, I think this is more in the category of like this could be interesting. I don't know if it's actually good. He is like more fragile than sister since he can't get dodges easily as she can. Um, but without steady or relentless, it, you know, this doesn't really help his durability. Like you want him in melee anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
I think it's sort of whatever. If people want to like try that gimmick, go for it.
yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like it's kind of silly that it's a thing, but it doesn't seem to be probably not a balance issue.
I don't even hate the like themey premise of it though. It's like I can see him like viciously throwing his lightsaber.
Yeah,
Like I don't know, like as if he was ramming something. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, everyone else just needs to throw their lightsabers harder.
yeah, I mean, I suspect that we might see an answer to that question on the forums.
Which question is that?
Whether this is actually intended to work
Oh,
with rage text.
is this a segue to our next section?
I was attempting to kind of just toss you an easy layup here, Kyle.
Um, all right. Yeah. So this next section is going to be sort of rules that you're probably doing wrong. Most of these are going to be form rulings because that's kind of the broad category of like, you know, things that are either not clear or different from how they're printed in the text that you're most likely using, which is the card text or the CRB or some combination. Some of these are, a couple of these are not actually going to be form rulings, but they're just things that people commonly don't do correctly. So,
I mean, hell, there's a couple things on this list that we didn't learn until today.
yes,
Like just straight up, yeah. We were kind of like going over the premise for like what we should talk about today, and I was like, let's go over stuff people don't know before Adepticon, just so that we can talk about it. And I we got some local guys involved, and Hob, who is our resident local rules expert, um, threw a couple curveballs that I was like, wait, that's a thing. So we're gonna go over some stuff, and
yeah, I was today years old when I learned
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of these. So I used to think I had a pretty good handle on the rules. I am constantly now startled by how things actually work. So, yeah, like half of these I didn't know before today. So,
half.
maybe slightly less than half,
Okay, half
but
seems like a lot, but
okay, that's fair. Maybe like two or three of them.
okay, I'll give you two or three. All right, all right.
Uh,
Do you want to just start from the top and work our way down here?
yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, let's start with your favorite topic.
So the first one is cover. Obviously, we've talked about this on the cast before, but I know for sure this is a thing that a lot of people are doing wrong. The rules text in the CRB is the same text that they previewed back in December of what, 2022, I guess now, where when people read the text, they were like, okay, so the attacker picks a point and then they draw to the entire silhouette of the defender. Um, but because that's what it's kind of seemed, it seems to imply attacker agency when you read the text in the CRB, which would make sense because, when you look at anything, you look from a point to the thing, right? But in fact, it is you draw basically a silhouette sized beam towards it. It's not any to all, it's all to all is kind of how I think the forum ruling on this is phrased. But basically, the attacker does not pick a point. You draw a beam from the attacker to the defender, and if any part of that beam hits a terrain piece, then the defender has cover. So essentially what this amounts to. It doesn't always work like this, particularly when you get into vehicles, which I don't even want to.
We're
I
not
don't
going to
know.
talk about vehicles because we
Yeah,
still don't know how to do it,
right. Yeah,
frankly.
yeah. But what this mostly amounts to is the attacker picks like the worst possible option and then goes from that point. It's kind of how it is in practice.
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes if you get like multiple terrain pieces,
It can get
it
weird
can get
for
weird.
sure.
It can get really weird.
It can get really weird really quickly,
Yes.
actually.
Um, so yeah, that's the first thing. I mean that's the process that like you interact with the most, probably besides moving. So it's definitely something to like be aware of. Um, and I know for sure that people are doing this wrong. So,
Yeah. Uh,
all right,
yeah,
Joe,
for
next
sure.
one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so this is in our notes as force push, but this essentially goes for any time you're moving an opposing unit. So this could be like Dooku's 3-pip,
Yep.
um, serve your master. Basically, uh, and this is related specifically to objective tokens. So objective tokens state that the controlling player places the objective token after a unit performs a move. And they've essentially ruled that in the context of that particular sentence, controlling player is not the unit that is controlling the move, but the unit that controls the unit that is moving, if that makes sense. The owner.
The owner.
I wish that it said owner and not controlling player.
Yes.
But essentially what that means is if you move an opponent's unit with force push or some other effect, your opponent is the one that gets to place the objective token after you move that unit.
Yeah.
Now, notably, and this is related to one of our other things on this list, is and this is not how it used to be. It used to be that you place the objective token after dropping the unit leader. But
and more precisely, the order of operations used to be drop the unit leader, drop the objective token, drop the models in cohesion.
right,
The sequence is now drop the leader,
drop the
drop
models in
in
cohesion.
cohesion, place the objective token.
Yeah, and if you cannot place the objective token in base contact with the leader, then you place it as close as possible. Which means there are a lot of situations where you can kind of like push, even just making a normal move with your own unit, you can kind of like shove the objective token away from your unit leader in a useful direction by cohering guys around him.
Yep.
I think this is most relevant on hostage. Could also be relevant on recover. Hostage
like,
is
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, then I was just
Interrupt you.
trying to come up with like
I
another
think
situation, but yeah.
I mean, those are. I guess it could be on bombing run too.
Bombing run's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
Getting an
So,
extra like inch out of movement on bombing run would be a big deal.
yeah, because bombing run and hostage specifically are ones where the scoring is dependent on the location of the token, and the token being within a certain area, and not the location of the unit leader.
Yeah.
So if like for either of those objectives, if you can get almost to your deployment zone or your opponent's deployment zone, or within range one in the case of bombing run, but like not quite there, you can kind of cohere your dudes around your unit leader such that like the ones on the side of the unit leader that you want the token to go are just a little bit closer to the unit leader than the ones on the other side.
Yep.
And therefore the closest spot for the token is the one basically where you want it to go. But it could be like an inch or like an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches, depending on how many models you have and stuff away from your unit leader. So
yeah, if you got like an eight man like Ewok or B1 squad, like you can do some like complicated stuff. The other thing is that importantly with the force push objective token placement interaction, if you're very intentional about it and you like really care where your opponent is going to place the objective token, you can actually cohere the rest of the unit around the unit leader in such a way that they really don't have an option as to where the objective token actually goes.
yep.
So you can actually like sort of make it so that the objective token ends up like probably 2 to 3 inches away from where your opponent actually wanted to put it.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think it's possible this actually gives you like in some ways more agency over where the token goes than you previously had when doing force push.
It depends on if there is enough things in the unit
Yeah.
alive to actually orchestrate a situation like that. But generally in the situations where you're like force pushing a hostage, it's generally like on the like opening engagement, like right after turn one, and generally nothing has died in that unit yet.
Yeah, which means you're gonna have enough models to make this work in the way that you want it to.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Melee snapping. You want to talk about this one, Mr. Ewok bubble wrap?
Yeah, so I mean, melee snapping, and I guess we can also talk about like the melee wound allocation too. So melee snapping, we wanted to just go over because it can get a little wonky when like your unit leader like falls out of melee while the rest of your squad is still like basing stuff. And the way that the rules work is that the attacker advances, right? So we actually had a situation come up in our game at Nova
Yep.
I guess this year, where you like double moved with your Anakin into, I think it was a double move, into one of my clone units. You like relentless them. You killed a bunch of guys, and I think I had done something weird, like cohering forward to do something. So like I don't know exactly how we ended up in this situation, but what
Well,
ended
here
good.
I do because this is relevant to one of our other points related
Sure.
to melee. And it's that it used to be that you had to fit as many models as possible around
This is what happened.
slash in melee
Yeah, 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 yeah.
with your target. Now there's no obligation to do that, and you don't have to like um, place them in any, you don't have to place the unit leader first. So you can place them in any particular order, which means you can create a situation where like some of your models cannot be placed in the base, even if otherwise they would fit, like if you place them in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
So basically, what I did is I engaged one of your non-leader models because that is what happened to be closest to Anakin.
This is how this
Um,
happened. I'm remembering now.
yep.
And then yeah, and then
Uh,
I was the shady character abusing the rules.
yeah. So you placed like four of your non-leader models in the four corners around Anakin. And for the uninitiated, by the way, six bases, if you place them correctly, um,
Can fit.
can fit
But
around a single base. But you basically place them, four equidistant spots so that your unit leader base could not fit next to Anakin, and then you placed your unit leader like, 3 inches away from Anakin.
far, far away.
Towards your your clone line
My
and not
stuff.
mine.
Yep.
Um, and then Anakin killed those four dudes.
And the one dude survived, which was important because when you attack, you are the one that advances first. So
Yep.
even though Anakin wasn't like in base contact with any units at the end of swinging his lights, I guess technically not at the end, but like as a result of killing four dudes, he had to then advance like another 3 inches towards me to
Yep.
base the one unit leader that was left. Um,
Which is not where I wanted to be. I didn't
which
want to be
is
closer to Mike's gun line.
yeah, it wasn't a great place to
I think
be.
it might have even be one of those situations where I like pulled them around the corner with force push, and then you had your unit leader like around the wrong side of the corner, and I had to
Yeah.
like move. Yeah, I don't remember
And
exactly.
like
It was
it's one of
bad.
those situations where I strongly suspect that if you had realized what would have happened, you actually would not have pierced all of those guys to death.
Oh, 100%.
Like
Yeah.
like it was like one of those situations where we didn't really know what was going to happen next. We called Hob and he came over and explained it to
Yeah.
us. But like by that time, like models were off the board and like the attack had been
Yeah, yeah.
resolved and like dodge tokens have been spent and yeah, blah 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 blah. So yeah,
Yeah, it was
um,
not where I wanted to be with him.
for sure. So yeah, important to note that attacker snaps first, and even if like you fall out of complete base contact, if the unit you were attacking is still surviving, you still have to advance into it.
Yep. And snapping happens. There's no like specific time that you check for snapping. Snapping happens basically always. So like after literally anything happens, you check for snapping.
So I actually had
Is that
this come
right?
up. I don't think so.
Okay. But
And somebody can fact check me on this, but I'm gonna say it as it was described to me by Ryan Slowoski at the last tournament I was at.
okay.
So I had a gigantic melee scrum between my Ewoks and Richard's Wookiees, and it was a situation where like there was like five different units involved in like one big melee. Like he had like three, I had two, and it was a situation where I ended up like killing one of his units, and that opened up spaces for my other squads to technically cohere. But since those squads weren't actually involved in that attack action, they didn't snap.
Interesting. Okay.
Somebody can call me on that. That was how it was ruled at uh Rocky Top. Where do we go?
Cherokee.
Cherokee. That one.
Yep.
I get them all confused. I don't know. There's so many. And it was interesting because I definitely was unsure of what was I really hadn't had that situation come up because I don't like play a lot of melee
Yeah.
stuff. And the real only reason it came up at all is because I had like Ewoks in my army, which was a first. Um, but yeah, that was how that was ruled. It's possible that we
Okay.
went to the forums. You
I
might
could
get
be
different
working off
ruling.
an old assumption there.
Yeah, I that was the thing. I also thought that they were kind of supposed to snap, but I was like, let's call a judge to make sure that like we get this right because it did end up it would have mattered because like it was the difference between me being able to then like on my next turn get Chewie into base contact with that unit and beat it up because there was now an empty hole
Okay.
uh, to add like a sixth unit to the scrum.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. So
All right. Overrun. Oh, sorry. One more melee topic. Melee wound allocation.
yeah. So Lila had posted on the Discord the other day about whether the so in when you're firing with a ranged weapon, if you can't see a certain number of wounds, you only like there's a cap on the amount of wounds you can do. And she was kind of going through the rule book and like kind of realized that that verbiage is actually not specific to ranged attacks. It's actually like it actually applies to melee attacks
Yeah.
too. So if you can't see something, so it doesn't come up that often. Um,
You'd have to be in a melee, like on the corner of a building.
and importantly, like the thing that you can't see would have had to have been in a situation where it didn't have to cohere into you, like there was no space for it
Like the one we
to
just described.
exactly like to
Yeah.
snap. But if you can't, if none of your units in the attacking unit can see the defending model, it can't kill it, even in a melee. Now, that is definitely rules as written. Lila submitted a question on the forum that, to my understanding, has not been answered yet. So it's possible that can be clarified and changed. Though I suspect it will probably stay the same way, just for the sake of
Until
yeah,
they change it, at
yeah,
least.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because right now it very clearly does not say just range attacks.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Uh, that's like one of the things that I learned something new today.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I was today years old when I learned that.
yeah, yeah,
All right, overrun.
yeah. So, as everybody's maybe aware at this point, overrun has changed so that you use the movement template. Um, you can use the movement template as a kind of like pseudo replacement for actually moving your unit over the target. Um,
Yeah, as long as you overlap your target with the movement template, you don't have to actually go over the target. This is another uh essentially collateral effect from the fact that small base troopers no longer move along the tool. They just teleport to the end of it. So
the the clarification here that I wanted to highlight was that you don't actually the movement template just has to overlap. It doesn't actually have to be a legal move. So, for instance, let's say that your this swoop bike is stuck on the corner of a building because the building's like height 2, but you can get the movement template to go past the building because it's like, the side of the base is stuck on it.
yeah,
You can still overrun things 3 times with or two up to the
twice.
overrun.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Overrun number. Um, Even though the move is illegal.
Well, you just don't go anywhere. The move is legal. You just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
like in contrast to like before, you actually had to overrun the unit, right?
Yeah,
Or
now you
like
don't actually need to be able to reach your destination.
correct. You do
Yeah.
not have to legally be able to reach. You just have to show that the unit tool overlaps. It's not like super intuitive in that regard. Um, the other thing that was clarified was overrun. If you are using the movement tool, you do have to have line of sight to the target. You cannot overrun something with a tool that you do not have line of sight to
So no overrun around corners.
if you don't have line of sight around that corner, correct?
Right. Yeah. Could
Um,
you, going back real quickly to the previous thing, if there was like a defending unit that was on top of, you know, a height 3 building and the swoop bike was on the ground, could you overlap them with the tool and overrun them even
So
though you can't reach them?
this was clarified. I believe in that regard, the tool has to be able to be placed as if the move was legal. I can look up the specific
Okay.
verbiage actually, if we'd like to look at that. I close the thing, but
There's a weird thing here too with something else that we're going to talk about with movement that I also really don't understand. Um, because like being able to place the tool and actually being able to do the move are two separate things that have different implications, and particularly with overrun. So
uh, oh, I've got the link right here.
there
I
you
don't
go.
know why I'm searching it. Um, okay, so uh, if you are unable to reach the target's height, you are not allowed to perform the overrun attack, as the movement tool is not placed legally to hit them. Like it's the
So
description.
in order to place the movement tool, you have to be placing it over something that you can actually move over.
Yes. So for instance, if they were on top of like swoops ignore height 1 terrain, right? If it was a unit that was on top of height 1 terrain, it would be legal. If it's
Right.
on something larger than that, it would not be legal. And so like let's take Geonosians,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yep.
Um, if you wanted it to not be legal for them, it would have to be like height 4,
Right. Which isn't really
which
a thing.
is doesn't exist, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Okay. But you could run into a situation like the corner one you specified where you can't actually reach the target, but that is still a legal overrun because it doesn't have anything to do with height.
correct. And the third kind of like weird corner case here is that you can perform it uh even if the move would be ended due to the table edge. So like the movement tool, I don't think has to actually stay on the table.
Okay.
It, I think.
All right. So you can put it off the table. You can hang it off the
That
table
so
to do the
that one
overrun.
maybe could use some additional
Okay.
clarification. The question doesn't actually ask the question in the forum post doesn't actually ask about the movement tool not being on the table. It mentions the unit that is moving, leaving the battlefield if it would like
Okay.
contact the edge, and but the response is as an overrun attack is not an action, free or otherwise. It may be performed after a move that was ended prematurely due to the edge of the table, which suggests to me that you still put the movement tool down and you still like the movement tool's obviously going off the table in that scenario,
Right. Yeah.
right? Um,
That whole language is awkward too because the overrun attack occurs after your move, but the movement tool goes down at the start of your move.
right. That's
Yeah.
yeah. So like a little unclear, but I do think that we can kind of like infer that even if you were to go off the table, like you can do weird things like put the tool
Yeah.
off the table. I
Okay.
think it's
So it's
possible that could be like retconned or whatever, but
okay. So really, the TLDR is sometimes you can do an overrun when you can't get there. Sometimes you can't.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And the can't is almost certainly because of intervening terrain that your unit couldn't go over to begin with, or you
Height
don't have
something
line
that's
of
too
sight.
tall. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Um, Now, notably, what that what this doesn't talk about, and that I'm actually just thinking about this now as we're like talking about it, is like sometimes like you define terrain before the game is like not like repulsor eligible.
Yeah.
And this only refers to height stuff. I don't know if like
If there's like an impassable terrain or something that,
yeah, like
yeah.
if something is impassable to a repulsor, if this actually if it affects overrun, that's not clear to me. But maybe ask a judge.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Death from above while we're talking about terrain heights.
Yeah, you want to talk about this one, so I'm gonna let you take that away.
I did. We've talked about this previously on the cast when we've talked about geonotions. The short version is that height, as it's defined in Death from Above, refers specifically to the height band in range bands of the terrain. Um, so if and the table, this is essentially foregoing, but the surface of the table is essentially like height zero. So if your geonotions are on a terrain piece that's not area terrain, and your target is on the table, then they get death from above. If the defender's unit leader, and this is the secondary models basically don't matter for this. If the defender's unit leader is on any piece of terrain, and the geonotions are including area terrain, and the geonotions are like not on a height 2 or higher terrain piece, which means they'd have to be at least 6.1 inches. Well, they'd have to be on a terrain piece that is at least 6.1 inches tall. Then they don't get death from above. So it essentially it's not like the absolute position of the model. It is the height of the terrain that they are on in range bands related to the height of the defender's terrain that they're on in range bands.
Which is relevant to the play surface.
Right, relative to the play surface.
As opposed to the
As opposed to the two units themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. This could result potentially in some situations where like the Geonosian model is actually physically lower than the target. Um, it, it, anyway, uh, but it's also relevant to just talk about height generally because height is used sometimes within the same like rules section to refer both to height as in range bands, but also absolute height, like when you're talking about the height of a silhouette versus a terrain piece. Like the climb rules reference both terrain height in range bands and the height of a silhouette in absolute terms, but and using the word height both times. Um, so it's just important to be mindful of the fact that at least with death from above, when death from above says height, it means in range bands of the terrain piece. So,
Yep.
okay. Objective token placement we already talked about. While we're talking about height and terrain, you want to talk about terrain gap
I would
movement?
love to, Kyle.
Okay.
I would absolutely love
This
to
is another
because
one that
this
I
was
learned
a
about
yeah,
today.
this was the one that I definitely had no idea was a thing. So let's imagine, for instance, that we had two characters. Let's say Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they were on these like floating platforms above lava on
Okay.
Mustafar.
Hypothetically.
And hypothetically.
Yep.
And those terrain pieces were higher than a silhouette above the ground. Um,
Let's use something that doesn't have the jump keyword because I feel like
okay. I was
thematically,
I was trying to go with a
I
themey
know.
thing, but that's fine. Yes. Let's
Let's
say
imagine it's just like a B1 and a clone trooper on
sure,
on the
sure.
on the on the floating platforms above the lava.
We're replacing our heroes with crappy infantry. That's fine. So let's imagine that it's a
Okay.
B1 and a clone trooper, totally
Yep.
fine. I think you're right. It will simplify the example.
Yep. Okay.
Um, and those things are basically a speed to move away from each other, but they're on completely separate platforms. They are not connected in any way. Um, since they are on the same level,
Same height.
same height. Sorry, I should use more precise words. Since they
Yeah.
are on the same height, you can technically take a speed 2 move across.
And sorry,
Yep.
because I have to interrupt you. Height in this context means height of the silhouette of the unit relative to
Yes.
where they're trying to go,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
the height and range bands of the terrain piece. So sorry, please.
Yeah, you're good. You're
I
good.
had to.
Because normally, if you are crossing something that is farther away from your silhouette, you would have to take climb action, which would reduce your speed.
Yes.
But since they're on a level field, even though there's nothing but air in between them, they can move their normal move distance across the gap to enter engagement with one another. They don't have to enter engagement. I just like they can
Yeah.
cross the gap. So like for instance, we there's a ton of like Ewok village pieces that people play with these days that have like the bridges
Yep.
and stuff like that that are all at the same level. You can move across even if there's no bridge. If you can like get from one to the other in a speed 2 move with a normal trooper unit, like it doesn't slow you down. Uh, unless you've declared it difficult or something. Um, which yeah, I don't know.
Well, and this is basically another follow-on effect of teleporting to the end of the tool
Yes.
instead of moving along it. Um, it is also notable that because of how the climb rules are worded, if you have like an inverse situation, say there's a height 3 wall or whatever in between those two platforms, you actually cannot do that because that's not a legal placement of the movement tool, even though, you're still teleporting from point A to point B, um, because there's something higher than you in between point A and point B, you trigger the climb rules. And once that happens, you're actually not allowed to place the tool in a way that would go over the terrain that you can't climb over. Um, but if there's a canyon or lava or whatever, since that's, below your relative height, that doesn't trigger the climb rules, and therefore you can do the teleport thing. So I learned that today.
I did too.
And
All right.
that's actually going to be relevant a lot because there are a lot of terrain pieces where this is a thing. And frankly, even like the Ewok village thing aside, there's just kind of a lot of like rocks and stuff that have, you know, like roughly similar heights that are going to be within a silhouette of each other
Yep.
between point A and point B. And you're going to be able to just kind of like go across the terrain piece, even though if there's a little, ravine or whatever in between. Like there's going to be a lot of terrain pieces where this is relevant, even just within it doesn't matter if they're different terrain pieces, if they're the same terrain piece, none of that matters.
Yeah,
So
we definitely went with the there's a ravine between us that is impassable as like you know.
I think if it's like strictly impassable, like
Yes, you
if you
probably
called
can't
it
move about.
impassable, I don't, and again, I guess I
That
don't
was
know.
poor wording on my part, but
Yeah. But if you called it impassable before the game, so maybe
so,
lava's a bad example because I think you'd probably call lava impassable. Um, but if you called whatever the thing in between is impassable, that I think that you can't actually place the movement tool. Uh, but any other situation, like you're going to be able to make that move. So,
yeah. Um,
and that's going to come up a lot. I think
Indeed.
other than cover, this one might come up the most of like all the ones that we've talked about so far, probably. Maybe in the melee snapping. Um, I
yeah,
don't know.
that's fair. I think the objective token replacement maybe comes up.
That's true. Yeah. That's going to come up in every hostage recover bombing run game.
Yep. The next one we've got on here is jumping down. This is just like a clarification because this has changed a couple times. And it's like the ruling has been reversed. And so the latest iteration is that if you are a unit with the jump X keyword, you can jump down any any height as opposed to the number on your jump. Still can only jump up,
Right.
the number at a time. But
Yep.
yeah.
This is how it used to work, how it briefly didn't work, and now how it works again. So
Yeah, it's been updated a couple times. I'm
makes
not actually sure when the latest time. I think it might have changed back last December, but it used to not be that way. You used to only be able to jump downhill. So, um,
yep.
what else we got on here?
Hostage and speed reduction.
Yes. So, hostage in hostage exchange, the hostage obviously reduces your speed by by one. There's other movement reducing effects, for instance, immobilized tokens, Wookiee with a shield that has it flipped to the shield, the armor one side also reduces your movement. You can be reduced to zero.
Yeah, now correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have one in front of me, but I think the hostage card says to a minimum of one. Otherwise, like
uh,
Snows would be immobilized if they
yes,
took a
sorry.
hostage.
Yes, the hostage
Yeah,
one does, but if you have another effect that does not have that on it, it will reduce you further. So, for
right.
instance, if you had a hostage unit that was a Wookiee Warriors unit with a shield that is flipped to the armor side, your speed is zero and you're not going anywhere.
Yep. Or if you gain an immobilized token, same deal.
You're also not going anywhere. Yep.
Yep.
So that was good to point out. And then,
So giving your hostage to a shield Wookiee maybe not as good as you thought it was.
well, it's, like you can flip it at the beginning of their activation, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So it's not that big a deal, but
You're
yeah.
not going to be able to like run away with the hostage while also benefiting from the armor one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Which kind of might destroy the point. And then the last thing that we've got on our list to highlight here is an interaction between standby tokens and the Wookiee Defenders Battle Force. And that is if, for whatever reason, a Wookiee unit triggers multiple standby tokens. And as a result of the first standby token going off, loses a model. The Wookiee Battle Force special ability happens before the other standby gets to go off. So you can kind of interrupt the standby chain with the Wookiee ability. This could lead you to potentially, I don't know, move the Wookiee unit out of range of the other unit shooting, or put them behind an LOS blocker so they can't be shot. The second standby still goes off, even if they like can't see that unit, or like it's already, the trigger for it to go off has already happened, but the conditions of the battlefield will actually be different by the time that unit actually gets to resolve the standby.
Interesting. Okay.
So we don't have a lot of interrupts in Legion.
Yes, standby has always had some weird timing interactions.
Yeah, stuff like this can sometimes happen when you have like standbys on both sides, and like,
Yeah.
one triggers a standby and maybe they take a move and that triggers somebody else's standby, but other standbys are going off and it gets complicated. And
Yeah, what happens if you're like stripping standbys as a result of triggering standbys?
yeah, it
This gets
gets,
more weird the more standbys are on the table, which is why like, you know,
it's a great thing. Standby sharing's gone.
yeah. Yeah, and why cards like hold it at any cost can get awkward sometimes when like, you're dropping whatever six standbys at once potentially.
Yeah.
Um, typically you're only dealing with one standby at a time. And it's unusual to have like multiples. So,
But that is the list that we came up with that we want to talk about today. And while perhaps not fully exhaustive of all the things that you may be doing wrong, it is a bunch that I think frequently get missed, and are good to know if you're practicing for Worlds and don't want to be caught off guard by, say, someone doing weird things with objective tokens, or flying across
teleporting, yeah.
gaps of terrain. And it's in everybody's best interest to be equipped with the proper
Yep.
information to play the game. So
Yeah, you want to avoid gotchas basically at all costs. So, um,
and
the more people that know how to actually properly do things, the better.
I think the biggest thing about most of these rulings is that or rulings, rules, however you want to kind of like look at it, is that a lot of these things can result in gotcha situations.
Right.
Where one player, the board state was not clear to both players, even though it was completely face up.
Yeah,
So
this will probably be one of those things where like if I roll up to that Ewok table or another table that has a lot of, floating terrain pieces at similar heights or whatever, I'm gonna be like, all right, this looks like it's gonna be one of those tables where we can do a lot of teleporting across, to basically like make sure I highlight for my opponent that that's a thing you can do.
Yeah.
Um, rather than, waiting until I do it the first time
I'd
to
be like,
see if
what?
they know that. Yeah.
Man, I
You
wish
you
I
don't you don't
deployed on top of the Ewok buildings.
yeah, you don't want to be in that situation, and you
No.
don't want to put your opponent in that situation either. So, um, yeah. All right. Any final thoughts?
I am ready to turn on my advanced targeting computer and complete the mission.
Yeah, me too. Possibly at the same time, depending on what units those are on.
Yeah, we're not regs.
We're not. All right. We are the Notorious Scoundrels. Our
Not Mike.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.